Hello, my name's Dave and welcome to this series about learning the basics of music theory easily, step by step. This is episode number 1, and in this episode we're going to be looking at what I call the musical alphabet. There is a book that accompanies this course, so if you go to the link in the description box below and you'll find out the details about that. The first step in learning music theory is to learn what I call the musical alphabet. Now that's just a fancy way of saying learning the notes. We learn the letters that we've got to play with. To understand how the notes work and how we can create music from, it helps to know what the notes are. The musical alphabet, as in the notes, is called the chromatic scale. The chromatic scale consists of the notes A through to G, and it just goes up the alphabet like that. So it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G. There's no H, there's no I, no J, no K, no Z, none of those. It's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then it loops around, so it starts over. So no matter which letter you start from, it just loops around from there. So if you start from A, it'd go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and just round and round and round. If you started from, let's say, C, it'd go from C to C, but every time it gets to G, we go back to A. So it'd go C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, starts again, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and just round and round and round like that. So they're the only notes we've got to play with. When we think of the musical alphabet or the chromatic scale, we need to think of the notes moving up or down in semitones. Now a semitone is the smallest distance between two notes. So if you're a guitar player, you could think of that as being from one fret to the next fret. It's just one fret distance apart from each other. And if you're on piano, it'd just be going from one key to the very next key. There are 12 notes in the chromatic scale. So we've got our notes that we've already said, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now in between these notes, we have these things that if you play an instrument already, which I'm guessing you probably do, you'll have come across what we call sharps and flats. So in between these letters, we have sharps and flats. There's only 2 exceptions to this. Between the notes B and C, there are no sharps or flats. And between the notes E and F, there are no sharps and flats. This actually means that the notes B to C are a semitone apart, and the notes E and F are a semitone apart, which just means they don't need a sharp or flat in between them. Sharps and flats are usually the first area that people get confused with. So this section, all we really need to learn is what the notes are that we've got to play with. We don't really need to know how they work yet. We're going to come to that in the future sections. But the way I like to think of sharps and flats is if a note needs to move, which again we'll come to later, but if a note needs to move, if it goes up in pitch, so as in da 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 da, it goes upwards, and the note needs to go that direction, it is sharpened, so you put a sharp after it, it goes up. If a note goes downwards, da 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 dum, and it goes down in direction, it needs to move back, then you would flatten it. So flat means going backwards and sharp means going upwards. To give you an example of this, if we're going from A to B and going upwards, it'd go A, A sharp, B. If we're going backwards from B to A, which is technically the same notes, you'd go B, B flat, A. Now this is exactly what I was saying. This is where the confusion lies for people at first. That means that the note A sharp and the note B flat are the exact same notes. So why do they need different names? What's the point? You would call them a different name or choose one name over the other depending on what context or what key you were playing in. But at first we just want to know what the notes are. Now I think it's really important to be able to write down the notes. I've always had this thing where I think, it's same when I learn lyrics as well, is if I can write out the lyrics, usually from memory is better, but if you can write them down, it means you can visualize them in your own handwriting, and that's always helped me. So it's something I always recommend. So I would personally say to write down this chromatic scale. You can copy it off the screen because I know it's going to come up on screen in a second. So you start by writing down the notes A, B, C, D, E, F and G. As remember, that just loops around, that's all the notes we have there. Now we want to go through from left to right, and I find it easiest to start by putting the sharps in first. So you're not worrying too much about different types of notes, you're just going through one at a time. So in between A and B, we have a sharp, so we can put down in the gap between the two, A sharp. Now we've gone, so A sharp, B. Now B to C, does that have a sharp? No, that's right, well remembered, we don't have any sharps or flats in between B and C. So now we've got A sharp, B, straight to C. Now we're on C to D. Now between C and D, is there a sharp? That's right, there's a sharp, C sharp. So A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. Now we're on to the next one, which is D to E. Is there a sharp between D and E? That's right, there's a D sharp. So now we can put D sharp in that gap. So we've got A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. Next, we've got E to F. Is there a sharp between E and F? Well, remember, there's no sharps between E and F. That's right. So now we've got A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. Nearly there now. So next we've got between F and G. So between F and G, is there a sharp? Yes, there is. F sharp. So A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. And finally, is there a sharp after G? That's right, there is. G sharp, and then it goes back through to the beginning. So that's the sharps filled in. So now you should have all of those wrote down on your piece of paper. And we're going to go on to the flats now. Everywhere that you have a sharp note, underneath that, you're going to put a flat note because it can be called either of those names, depending on what context or key you're playing in. So under the note A sharp, the note next to that, the next note to come up will be B. So now we put under A sharp, B flat. And we do this all the way along. So after the next note, which is B, B to C, remember, doesn't have a sharp or flat, so nothing needs to go in that gap. But between C and D, we have a C sharp. So now we take the D, and we put D flat underneath the C sharp. Same with the next one, so we're on D, so D to E, we have a D sharp. So now underneath D sharp, we take the E, and we put an E flat under D sharp. E to F, we have nothing, remember, we have nothing between those two. So that can be left as it is. Now F to G, we have an F sharp. So now we can put a G flat underneath F sharp. After the G, we have a G sharp. So remember, the alphabet, it goes round in a loop. So after the G, we go to A. So underneath G sharp, we can put A flat. And that is the full chromatic scale. That's all the notes. There's only 12 actual notes, actual 12 pitches, and that's what we're going to create all of our music using. So now you've got that all wrote down, I would recommend make sure it's nice and neat, so even if you have to write it out again, or if you just want to copy what I've got wrote on the screen as well, and then we can move on to the next step, which is about using these notes to create the major scale. So that's it for episode number 1. We've got all of our notes now, so we're ready now to take this and actually use it to make a scale. So that's going to be our next episode, which is about the major scale. So thanks very much for watching this episode. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification icon so you can keep up to date with all these lessons as they're uploaded, and I'll see you in this next lesson.